Welcome to the Werewolf Den, where we do a deep dive into the core concepts and principles behind White Wolf's Werewolf the Apocalypse.
I'm Amelin.
And I am Ryan.
Welcome back. So last time we talked about the Shadow Lords, and now we're going to talk about what I called a relatively underrated tribe, not underplayed, but underrated. The Silverfangs. So, the big thing that everybody knows about the Silverfangs is supposedly they are born to rule, but they're mad kings. This is generally the stereotype. And this is where we kind of bump into that supposed straw man argument that I'm going to make up right now, of somebody being like, you spend a lot of time deconstructing the notion of heritage does not have to be a thing with the tribes. But the Silverfangs are all about who are you descended from? Where do you come from? Whose daddy is your daddy? So how do you divorce heritage away from the Silverfangs? To me, I answer very simply, lineage and heritage are not the same thing, and it's lineage that is important to the Silverfangs, not heritage.
And I think lineage can come from a lot of different directions, but before we get into that, let's sort of cover the basis of what this tribe is. And the example that you always give is Harry Potter.
Yeah.
Harry Potter is the quintessential concept of the Silverfang. Someone whose parentage is exceptionally well known and sort of gives the character, that protagonist plot armor kind of concept. And I think having that internally as a Silverfang makes a lot of sense. This idea that you come from this great, as you said, background, and that the people that conceived you or taught you or mentored you or inspired you, these people have elevated you in the station of the world, that you are destined for great things because of this. And I think Harry Potter is another good example because Harry Potter himself doesn't go around flaunting his identity and saying, "Get in line behind me because I am Harry Potter, look at my scar." No, Harry Potter inspires people through other means and methods. And I think that that's a really good way to sort of expand your concept of what the Silverfang is. Someone who has all of this
expectation.
Yes. And either willingly or inadvertently uses that to move the story along.
Mm-hmm. The other good way to think of a Silverfang that is not necessarily like a ruler, but quintessentially Silverfang, if you're not a Harry Potter fan, I use Harry Potter as an example because he really is quintessentially Silverfang. But if you're not a Harry Potter fan, another good one to go with is Commander Armstrong, a Full Metal Alchemist. Sincerely, think about it. What is Commander Armstrong known for? This technique has been passed down the Armstrong line for generations. How is that not Silverfang?
And he's got the sparkles. He just radiates majesty, right? And so I think those are great characters to sort of look to for an inspiration of ways to play the Silverfangs that aren't sort of the basic stereotype that commonly comes up when you think of this tribe.
And that basic stereotype is, sadly, Ventrue.
Yeah. Again, it's vampire. Vampire's great, but where it takes root in werewolf is really kind of destructive, I think. One of the things that bothers me with that Ventrue relationship is that the Garou Nation is fighting for a cause, whereas the vampires and the Camarilla especially are just sort of trying to occupy immortality, and so petty squabbles and infighting is a way to pass the aeons. With the Garou, there is a cause. You're here for a reason. So the idea of this, you should listen to me because blah blah blah, just feels like it's not applicable to the setting. With the Garou, there should be at least rudimentary understanding that you're all on the same team. Even if you don't like each other, you're still fighting for the same goal, the same cause. And so a leader who isn't able to actually lead people just feels like a colossal waste here. With the Ventrue, you don't mess with the Ventrue because they are powerful. With the Silverfangs, you've got to have something else there, because they're clearly not the most powerful. there are other tribes that are more numerous. There are other tribes that have greater clout and influence. And so what is it that puts you on your pedestal? It's got to be the fact that you stand for something. And standing for the Garou Nation and actually understanding what leadership is and how to lead is vitally important to this tribe.
You bringing this up reminds me of another thing that I do, because this is a tribe that I do feel like you do need to spend some time really just kind of decoupling it from vampire, less for the same reasons that we had to with the Silent Striders of the direct influence on their history, and just more of player mindset. Because this cause action that comes with it, you can put a cause into a vampire city for the entire city to unite around and kind of carry that in. But I feel like when you dig down deep into the roots, you gotta also realize that the inspirations for the two things are very different as far as versus clan versus tribe. With clan, you can look at it and very easily see that the influences for vampire clans are vampiric archetypes throughout literature.
Mm-hmm.
You want to be a skulky, sneaky, monstrous sort of vampire like Count Olaf? You got your Nosferatu. You want to be your swag, 80s style Lost Boys? You got your Bruja. You want to be your Anne Rice style I want to feel again vampires? You got your Toreador. Werewolf tribes do not come from that same place. They do not come from that same influence. When you look at the werewolf tribe, with a couple of the tribes, it's much more explicit. With the Black Furies, it's very explicit. With some of the other tribes, it's a little bit less so. And I feel like this is kind of a thing where Silverfang suffers. It's a little less explicit where this influence comes from, other than just the vampire tie-in. But the tribes come from the notion of extremist ideals. Ideals that the creators very easily saw as, this is something that people will get in line for, will fight for. This is why we kind of always scoff whenever we hear people say, I don't want politics in my werewolf game. The tribes are political ideologies.
Mm-hmm.
Feminism is built into the Black Furies. Anti-capitalism is built into the Bonars. Anti-colonialism is built into Little Brother. Fascism is kind of built into the Get Fenris. So when you kind of go into it with this mentality instead, you definitely get a very different feel then for a tribe of werewolves versus a clan of vampires when you consider these inspirations.
Mm-hmm.
So then, leaving off on that notion of what inspires the tribe, at least how it always read to me at the very least, let's then go to what is the political philosophy of the Silverfangs. And I feel like the best thing to work from, other than something that we'll get into later regarding self-improvement, that's going to be the notion then of divine right. And this is going to seem really archaic for a modern setting. But one of the things that I feel like you need to remember is that there is a way to modernize this particular philosophy. If you talk with anybody regarding the notions of meritocracy that actually believes in meritocracy for some reason, you get this sense of kind of divine right in and of itself. People are in those positions of power because something higher than themselves determined it to be so. Rather it's God, rather it's the economy, and in the Silverfang's case, rather it's heroic ancestry.
And you find this all the time in society. So a lot of rich folks who inherited their wealth are still assumed to be worthy because they come from that family. And a lot of people in society still hold to those sort of ideals. And again, with the Silverfang, it's doubly reinforced, right? Because it's not just some hokey connection to the past. It's literal. It's right there. And Falcon puts his stamp of approval on it. Right there, you have this totem meant to inspire leadership who is looking favorably upon you. And so that helps to reinforce this idea of the divine right to rule within the Silverfangs. When looking at leadership, I think the best place to start is with your gaming table. I feel that a lot of players, and I myself have to sort of deal with this hurdle. When I make a Silverfang, I think, all right, why would I lead the Sept? What sort of position of power do I want to have? And I feel that that's a bad first start. I think the best way to begin is to look at the people you'll be playing with and figure out what sort of Silverfang is going to work as sort of a mascot for your group. Because even if you go very anti-establishment and rebellious against the Sept, it's still nice to have that Silverfang aspect within the pack. And this brings us to one of the key aspects of the tribe, and that is purebreed. So a bit of a discussion about that before we return back to my original point. Purebreed within the game is supposed to be some identifiable mark that lets other people know you are descended from heroic stock. At best, it comes off kind of corny and silly, and at worst, it comes off just a teensy bit racist. At best, it's something like, oh, I have a shock of weirdly colored hair. Okay, I didn't know we were playing Shadowrun, cool. At worst, it's something like, oh, I have an aquiline nose. Okay, some cultures consider that to be, a mark of someone destined for greatness, but not all do, and it feels kind of disconnected and weird. Should I go around and assume everyone that has an aquiline nose is someone I should pay respect to? I think a better way to do it is to find something within your past that heralds to this greatness, and to think of it in ways that aren't necessarily genetic. The example I was just tossing with Amelin was the idea that, say you're a Silverfang who comes from this great and heroic Sept. It's well known throughout the Garou Nation. And everyone at this Sept, maybe they have a token that they carry around, or even a fetish, which I think is a cool concept. And that this fetish marks you as someone from this great Sept. And, you've left it, something happened, you've gone over to wherever the game setting is now. But you carry this marker of your past, of your upbringing with you. And when people see it, they go, oh, you were a part of this group. Or you are known for this collective, and they associate its deeds with you. That's the whole point of purebreed. And so thinking of it in those sorts of ways. And this is where I want to go back to my original point. I think it's a great way to not spill out 5 minutes of your own character's backstory and hope that the other players around the table will care, because let's be honest, they might not. But to use that as a way to draw their characters into your backstory. So let's say you've got this fetish from one of your grandparents. They did great deeds and they passed it on to you. A cool thing would be to spell out what those details are, but then say, hey, you're playing, this character. How about one of your grandparents was in the same pack as my grandparent? And hey, what if everyone at the table is all descended from this pack, but I'm the one who has this fetish, and so when people see it, they associate it with, my parentage, but then we can all go, yeah, all of our parents were a part of this pack. And so everyone sort of has a reason to care about your pure breed. It's still your marker. Your sign is a Silverfang, but it is a symbol for the pack to rally around rather than just you, to make your background something that ties the group together rather than just fleshing up and putting yourself on your own pedestal. And that's also a great way if you don't have, an opening vignette that gives your group a reason to be a pack. This is a cool way to just start the game off and say, hey, we're a pack and this is why. And I think that's a really cool way to utilize this tribe.
And it doesn't have to be even something so as intimately tied as, oh, we're all children of a different pack. You can take multiple different grandparents, great uncles, anything within your lineage, and tie it back to the other players. I'll use one of the games I'm running as an example. I have a player who killed her younger brother in her frenzy when her family was murdered and became the tribe that she is because somebody came to her rescue. I have a different character who has a father that wanders around all over the place and tries to do good wherever he can, but he's exiled from his original sept, so he can't actually settle down anywhere. I have another player who has a pack that got destroyed by vampires way in the past. If you are to play this Silverfang, you can be like, okay, I'm going to sit down now with every one of these pack. That Garou that came and brought you into the fold that you decided to follow through with your tribe, that Garou was tied to my great uncle who guided him on this path. And so now you have that degree of tie or measure to it. Hey, your pack that got torn apart by vampires in the past? Well, the sept that he was a part of had a tale singer who sang a beautiful tale in their memoriam, and that was my great aunt. You can take things that the players already care about, their own backstories, and create this distant tie that lets people know, oh, you are kind of tied to greatness because my mentor was influenced by your family, as so on and so forth. It can be still distant, but Silverfangs are an excellent, excellent way to create a cohesion or a center for your pack.
One of the other things to keep in mind is that as a Silverfang, you have these expectations placed upon you. And there is this cultural expectation that you are going to perform heroic things, that you are sort of that quintessential hero. And I think that's a great way to balance out that pursuit of power and leadership and to humanize your character, or to sort of flesh it out more, because it's easy to think of how that burden hanging over your shoulders is going to influence your behaviors. There may be hobbies that you wish you could partake of, but there are all of these expectations and requirements that you're forced to go through that prevent you from doing that. And so having these little ideas in mind can really help to flesh out your character. Maybe you would love to just take a day off and drink and, stream some TV just to unwind. Your kinfolk are always talking about these new trending shows, and you don't have time to watch those because you have all these other expectations and obligations you have to maintain. And so thinking of things like that to sort of give you little minor motivations and to help you to think of different ways to portray ambition rather than just, I want more power and I want to be in charge.
All too frequently, when I see players coming in to play Silverfang, they come for one of two reasons. They're that kind of power gamer sort of player that wants to rise in the ranks sort of deal. They want to eventually play this notion of becoming Sept Alpha one day. Or they're players that just kind of want to play Mr. Moneybags and throw around resources all over the place. And it's one of those things where the second one is not inherently Silverfang in any way. You can do the Mr. Moneybags thing with really any of the tribes other than Baunar.
Mm-hmm.
And with the first one, it's very frequently I find that sort of player that acts as a deterrent because people get that stereotype in that head. And so they think, oh, there's no, interpersonal conflict. There's nothing for me to sink my teeth into because I can't internalize the story of just, I want to kick that other player's ass out of the Sept Alpha position. But having this notion of, Dad expects me to do some great things. Great-grandma put all this effort into training me, into teaching me, and the world is watching me. These are huge internal problems that you can have with these characters that I feel like Silverfangs are more vulnerable to these types of story arcs, to these types of tragedies and conflicts than any other tribe. This notion of you are expected to be something great. And if you fail, there's something worse for it. The world is worse for it.
Speaking of tragedy, one thing that I think you need to be cautious of is trying to use your personal plot as a Silverfang to overwhelm all the other personal plots at the table. So, with tragedy, you might think of Macbeth, and the concept of the Mad King is very prevalent within Silverfangs. I know in the LARP system, it was required that you take a derangement because of inbreeding. That's its own thing. But this idea that the tribe is starting to become unhinged, that the glue's becoming frail and the House of Cards is going to collapse, is a very common meta-narrative within the tribe. And if you want to go with that, cool. Just remember to incorporate the rest of the table. And this is where I think reiterating that point we made previously about utilizing your pure breed as a way to tie your pack together and thereby make this a personal plot for the entire pack rather than just you, especially in a tabletop setting where this could easily overwhelm not only the other personal plots, but whatever meta plots are going on within, the storyteller's machinations. This can outweigh all of that. And if you're not careful, can make it all about you. So just like we talked about last time with the Shadow Lords, finding ways to incorporate the other people at the gaming table is very, very important and can further bolster that majestic concept of your character. If you're a mascot rather than a tyrant, it just flows so much more easily. And the other people at the table will most certainly like your character more because of it.
Tying into that, then, this notion of something majestic that everybody can idolize. Falcon, the Silverfang totem. Falcon's one of those totems where when you read about who the Silverfang stereotypically are, what their history is, all of this other stuff, Falcon almost seems out of place. Because Falcon is a majestic bird that soars high in the sky. Falcon is the most efficient of predators. Falcon has the sharpest and keenest of eyes.
And Falcon sees what's going on below. This idea that the Silverfangs are, up in their ivory tower oblivious to what's going on really flies in the face, pun intended, of what Falcon is. And so I think that's important to sort of re-cement.
So, working from that then, how does the Silverfang actually then have Falcon as their totem? Simply put, going back to our notion of expectations and the weight of the world upon your shoulder, Falcon is kind of almost the opposite of what Grandfather Thunder is to the Shadow Lords. Grandfather Thunder's Shadow Lords are his ambassadors. You're not good enough to talk to Grandfather Thunder. Your Shadow Lords will come in and fill that gap. They'll try to fill in that hole.
And no Shadow Lord would presume to be an equal to Grandfather Thunder. That's heretical. Grandfather Thunder is clearly better than you are.
With Falcon, though, Falcon is something that you are supposed to achieve. Falcon is an ideal that you are supposed to live up to. And with this, we come into the other thing that I tend to find players struggle with this tribe, which is the notion of being an assertive player. A lot of times when I come across a Silverfang player, if it's the power game player, they don't have a problem with this. But if they're not that power game player, if they're not used to being that person that directs and leads the table, they can very easily become overwhelmed by this tribe. Falcon is something that you need to live up to. And because of Falcon is something that you need to live up to, that means that when the time comes when you see something that you feel like you know in your heart of hearts this is the right way to do it, you need to hold firm to that. You need to stand up to even your own pack and say, this is how it needs to go. And you need to convince them why your way is the best way. And that, again, adds to that majesty. You're not majestic if you can't convince people of shit.
And again, if these are people at the gaming table, then just using supernatural powers to force them to do things, not a good look.
It's gonna make your fellow players resent you more than anything else.
Yeah, then we will end up with Macbeth, but there won't be much to Act 1, and there certainly won't be an Act 2 or 3, because you're just gonna get a knife in the head.
And like I said, you can be the Silverfang that's desperately trying to scale up that ladder, trying to desperately reach the pinnacle ideal that is Falcon, that is your heroic ancestors, and try to succeed, and maybe just come shy of it, or maybe you do succeed. Who knows? Maybe you have a very generous storyteller. Or you can intentionally kind of play the opposite, where it's like, I want to play this Silverfang with the intention of failing, with the intention of falling short. And when you have this idea that you may fall short, accepted in your mind, it actually makes the tribe funner to play, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Because then you as the player do not have those expectations. You can play out and play those character expectations without feeling the anxiety yourself of your character's failings.
And the repercussions of that, I think, can work really well to fill in the blank of that Mad King, downside. If your pack doesn't listen to you, then you take to drink, or, you turn to other vices to just try and get through. And that can spill over into all this great story from that.
Mm-hmm. Have consequences for people not listening to you if your fellow players are being jerks and not listening to you for whatever reason. Internalize that your character's failings are not your failings, and thus you can continue to spiral downward and have fun with it.
But definitely come into it with forethought. Like we've said previously, when you join a tribe, there is an accord between you and that totem spirit. This isn't a case of, that surfer vampire who got embraced by the Ventrue, but he really just wants to surf. I don't want this burden of leadership. It's a cool vampire concept. Doesn't work in Werewolf, because during a rite of passage, you saw Falcon, Falcon saw you, and you both went thumbs up. There's got to be some reason you're in this. But also to think about this ahead of time with the pack. This is something that I think we can kind of blame D&D for two things. One, you've got this idea that people just come together and join an adventuring group. Ugh, bad. Especially bad in a pack where there's supposed to be a reason you're kind of each other's family. You're not just a bunch of randos who fell into a basement together and decided, well, I guess we'll stick it out. If you have a vignette, an opening chapter that sort of spells out why you're together, cool. If you don't, even better, that gives you all the opportunity in the world to work with the other players and come up with a reason why you work together and why you, dare I say, like each other. But the other thing to go back to is sort of the stereotypes people have about paladins, that they're standing there with their convictions, and when the other players want to be murder hobos, they just sort of leave the room and pretend that bad things aren't happening. Don't do that.
Yeah,
never ever do that. I mean, first, talk to your other players, and if everyone's, a horny bard or a basic necromancer, maybe that's not a place for a paladin. Maybe it's not going to fit well. But yeah, have an understanding of what the pack as a group, as a family, is going to be like. And understand, where your Silverfang fits in that family and where they'd be willing to draw a line in the sand kind of thing.
I think this tribe is underrated. A lot of people are kind of meh about this tribe. I think it's cool. I feel like more people should attempt to play Silverfangs, and I feel like more people who are not power gamers especially should attempt to play Silverfangs.
One thing I wanted to bring up before we conclude is an idea I've had for a Silverfang for a long time. And it's the idea of someone who is aspiring for the position of Den Keeper, or Den Mother, or Den Father, what have you. But the position that looks over and teaches and guides and functions as a parent for all of the other cubs in the Sept. And I think that this really fits well with the idea of the Silverfang. That not only have you come from greatness, but the story of the Silverfang does not end with you. The glory and the story of the Garou Nation does not end with you. It has to carry on. And so someone who is passing on these ideals, these principles, these philosophies, these experiences to the next generation fits very well within that concept of the Silverfang. That you're not just someone who's vying for Sept Alpha or what have you, but finding a way to express the tribe's identity with the rest of the gaming group. I think that's a cool way to reiterate the point we were making at the beginning. That this is a tribe where it is more than just your genetics that makes you Silverfang. It's culture, it's legacy, things of that sort that make this tribe what it is.
All right. And with that, I hope that you can kind of come to the same conclusion that we did, where Silverfang is not necessarily, at its root, about the tribe that rules. The philosophy of the Silverfang, when you get down to it, is the philosophy of using what has come before to mold and shape yourself into your best self. And becoming your best self is the most effective way to fight the worm. This, at its core, is Silverfang philosophy. Not, I am a ruler above you all. It is, I must be the best that I can be because other people demand and depend that I am.
So our next tribe is kind of similar in a sense. Seeking that best self, we'll be talking about the final S tribe. Finally out of the S's here with the Stargazers.
They are interesting and problematic. So this will be fun.
Lupus, Arun, Stargazers with Kylan Doe flashback. Yeah.
You'll have to tell that story during that episode.
LARPing experiences with this tribe are not good. But there's good stuff to the tribe, so hope you'll join us next time when we get into the last S tribe.
See you then.
Take care. That was an awful episode, you two. Welcome back to the Pentex Break Room.
Here, you will find that we fully embrace your tyrannical, overbearing, selfish play style that comes with being a Silverfang.
And when you've bumped into all those hurdles of players hating you or not respecting you when you don't make any logical sense, come to the Pentex Break Room, where we have all of your responses covered. We have antidepressants, both in pill and liquid form, to help you cope with all of those unruly lessers.
Not to mention, suppository.
For them! That'll put them in line.
Please, make sure to pick up your prescription later today. Be sure to turn over all of your fetishes that your family and ancestry worked so hard to maintain and build up.
We'll put it to much better use. It definitely won't fall into the hands of those lessers in your sept. We guarantee it.
Have a good day.